like to very warmly invite to the stage James Denton, the creator of the program, to tell you a bit more on what we're trying to build and bring in order to strengthen the transatlantic community and give, again, the younger generation a voice and create these links across the Atlantic. Jim, please.
Oh, thanks. It's always nice to have a little company. Well, it seems that I'm perhaps according to the program anyway, the last member of the audience who's going to stand up here, not part of the organizing team. And let me just take this moment to say to Zbigniew and Kasia that it's really been a terrific experience for me, and I think for everyone else in the room and those who are not in the room as well. So let me just start by saying, Kasia, Zbigniew, what a terrific job.
Thank you.
Just very briefly, with respect to the program that Kasia mentioned, a little context. 4 or 5 years ago, a small group of us in Washington became very troubled that, in our view, the transatlantic partnership was really sort of falling apart. The United States, for reasons everybody here knows, post 9/11, et cetera, diverted its attentions elsewhere in the world. Europe, by late 1990s, 2000s, considered Europe whole and free. EU, NATO was being expanded. The United States had a little problem on 9/11, and one which took on a life of its own and redirected really the entire American security, economic, foreign policy apparatus, intelligence to other parts of the world. Not necessarily to great effect. That's another conversation. But in any case, at about that same, with those events, of course, the U.S. focus on this part of the world was diminished significantly, and this problem was being echoed to me by any number, primarily of ambassadors in Washington from this part of the world, who were telling me that they could not get meetings with fairly junior level people at the National Security Council, State Department, and so on. And while at the same time they were very concerned with the growing internal and external threats that this part of the world was looking at, and feeling that American engagement was really important. And then Ukraine was invaded, and a very close friend of mine, who was at the time the staff director of the Europe subcommittee that on the foreign affairs, the larger foreign affairs committee on the House side, when Ukraine was invaded, her boss was putting together a piece of legislation. I'm not quite sure what it was now, looking back, but it was kind of a sense, we call it, to get a sense of the House of Representatives in this particular case on what its views was, of the invasion by Russia. And there was a lot of confusion, green men, are they really Russians? Is Russia really involved? And we have those, extremist crazies in Ukraine, and is this something the United States should be involved in? Anyway, this staff director to the Europe subcommittee was running around the House of Representatives, first starting with her committee members, going to her counterparts, trying to get signatures on this piece of legislation, commitments. It's a true story, not one syllable of exaggeration. And she was telling me that the people that she was meeting with were literally going to their computers to find Ukraine on the map. Now, this was sort of the state of play 4 or 5 years ago. It had gotten, it had moved so far, this separation within the transatlantic partnership. Our own view, this small group of people that were concerned about it, feel and continue to feel very strongly that, as was alluded to already, that the transatlantic partnership is really, besides being historic, besides being unique, and enormously successful, it is really the first building block. It is indispensable, in our judgment, and I'm sure this view is shared by most of you here in this room. It is indispensable to the security of our countries and our way of life. Without it, things really, really start to fall apart. And it is also the first line of defense on our values. And I think if you peel away a few layers, it doesn't take a lot of thinking to realize that it's our values that are really under attack right now. And it's our values that threaten the regime inside the Kremlin. And so, concerned about the deterioration within the transatlantic partnership and recognizing its value to our way of life, we began to try to come up with ways, practical, small, unique ways to try to reestablish the links that had been frayed, decimated, eviscerated, to take a post 9/11 word, and to try to mend them. And one of the things, there are many, many things that need to be done on that, which, the governments have to do and only governments can do. But for our purposes and our sake, we decided that we thought it was really important to take the working level staff members from Europe and bring them to the United States. This is not for training. There's nothing about training in this program, but rather to rebuild the relationships between the sort of the working staff level people in Central and Eastern Europe, in particular, including Ukraine, to the United States, where, number one, you would develop the relationships, but there's also a huge information exchange component. And I've been involved with fellowships and different kinds of programmings over the years. And typically, when people come to the United States, in the past, 25, 30 years ago, it was 90% of the information was coming from Washington and to the visitors. In this case, it's the reverse. The Central and Eastern Europeans, like Kasia and others who have been through this program in Washington, who are working on Capitol Hill and working in the major think tanks in the city, are really teaching the Americans what the hell's going on over here. And they're opening their eyes, and it's we think, a kind of an important element to try to really educate not only the American side, but also to rebuild these ties. Last year, it was sort of a pilot program, by the way, funded by the National Endowment for Democracy. We had 15 people. Obviously, it's nothing extraordinary, but it's going to most likely double, at least double, in this next year. And the year following that, we think it'll probably double again. So Kasia asked me to say a few words about it, and that's kind of a few words. I guess do you have it on your website? You do? Which one? So you'll explain that part, so I don't have to navigate them to the scene. All right, well, so I think that's about it from me. And I'll be around if anyone has any particular questions. Age group we're looking for, by the way, 25 to 40. In the last group, we had the Chief Foreign Policy Advisor to the Prime Minister of Lithuania, who was in the program, just to give you a sense of the level of the seriousness. But they're not all the sort of senior people. There are also some who are more or less just getting into this world or into this issue. So I would encourage you, if you have staff or you yourselves if you meet criteria and eligibility to apply or send some of your people into the program to Washington, we kind of think it's worth good use of your time. It's 3 weeks. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much, and we will be informing all the participants of the Warsaw Security Forum about the details of the program as it unfolds next year, but anybody who would want to support, not only participate in the program, but also support institutionally and financially in the future, are very much welcomed to help this joint American Central European effort. So thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we proceed to the very last part of our evening, so the graduation ceremony for the new security leaders. This is the program where we invest in the future, but also current decision makers in security across the transatlantic community and even beyond it. And I would like to invite to the stage, well, two people actually. First of all, of course, Zbigniew Pisarski, the president of the Kazimierz Pułaski Foundation, who will be giving out the diploma, but also Mr. Wojciech Dzięgiel, whom I would like to recognize because this is the head of the organizing committee. I come here and shine and talk a lot, and that's easy, but this is the person who actually has been doing the toughest job with a wonderful team of people across all those months of preparations and now all those 2 days. So I'm very happy to ask both of you gentlemen to the stage to give out the 13 diplomas that we have, and one of the new security leaders will also have a few words of an executive summary of statements that the new security leaders have prepared over the last few days. Thank you.
I would like to invite Zviad Adzinbaya. I would like to invite Tugba Gunes. I would like to invite Diana Horvat. Please, all the NSL community be present on the stage. Wesley Fox. Joanna Hoza. Adelina Stefania Jelescu. Mindaugas Lassas. Guerino Mazzarollo. Monika Richter. Agnes Was. Weronika Wichowa. Dmytro Zolotukin. And Olha Zykova. And we kindly invite those mentors who support the NSL community. This is Brian Whitmore, David Van Abel, Brigham McCown, and Brooke Stedman. And we had also Dr. Haim Massa, but he's already in Israel, but it will be back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a new security leaders community, and this is the legacy we would like to bring for all of the Warsaw Security Forum participants, starting from now.